Welcome to TAMA Talks, brought to you by the Torrance Art Museum Advocates. I'm Janine Madden, current TAMA president, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Today's talk will feature work currently on view at the TAM as part of the Sur Biennial Showcase. Founded in 2011, the Sur Biennial seeks to explore the complex notions of globalization and exchange that takes place in the ambiguous borderlands between Los Angeles and the broader South. The multi-site, independently curated biennial exhibitions showcase works by local and international artists who have been influenced by the cultures and artistic traditions of Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean. For the 2023 Sur Biennial, the Torrance Art Museum is presenting MUERTE, Bad Death, Religious Syncretism in the Latin American Identity, curated by artist Hope Ezcurra. Today, we will be joined by artist Luciana Abait. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Who has a piece in the show, which is currently on view in the main gallery through December 2nd. The museum is located at 3320 Civic Center Drive in Torrance and is open Tuesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Admission is free. However, donations are accepted as they are used by TAMA to provide artist stipends and cover shipping costs for the artists who send their work in internationally. This discussion is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel with all of our previous TAMA Talks. You can also access it from our website, www.tamadvocates.com. Luciana was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and is currently based in Los Angeles, where she is a resident artist of the 18th Street Art Center in Santa Monica. Her multimedia works deal with climate change and environmental fragility and their impacts on immigration in particular. Her artworks have been shown widely in the United States, Europe, Latin America, and Asia in solo shows, in galleries, museums, and international art fairs. Welcome, Luciana. We're really happy you could join us today to talk about your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I am going to go ahead and let you screen share now.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. So I can see your image. You can see it on your end too?
I do.
Okay, great. So tell us a little bit about this piece.
Well, it's very interesting because when I started preparing the presentation for today's talk, this was the first image that I had prepared. And then I realized this is my first work that I did for the first Sur Biennial ever.
Oh,
that took place in 2011.
Wow.
I was looking for the background of my current piece at Torrance Art Museum, and I came for this piece, and then it's like, wow, yeah, this was Sur Biennial 2011.
Wow.
So everything comes full circle.
So,
my work, as you said before, deals with the relationship between the human world and the natural world. But it also deals with immigration, with the process of adaptation and assimilation that many people, and mostly immigrants, go through when we move to a new land. I'm originally from Argentina. I moved to the US at the end of the 1990s, and through more than 20 years, I experienced different kinds of assimilations and adaptation processes as I moved across the US, and I try to express my personal experience through my work, but I also want to talk about this in a very universal scale. So my work is mixed media. The basis of my works is mostly photography, and I always like to take photography out of the 2-dimension, and I want to take it to a 3-dimensional space. So this piece that I created in 2011 is called Nest, and it's a bird's nest. But as you can see, this bird's nest is made out of bricks, of a red brick wall. So it poses the question of who is adapting to who. Is it the human world that is adapting to the natural world, or vice versa? And while I'm posing these questions about adaptation, I'm also including in this conversation the adaptation and the assimilation that immigrants have to go through when you go into a new country, and who is adapting to who. This is a photo sculpture. It was presented at the Rio Hondo College.
Oh, yes.
In the main grassy area, and the scale is, the size was 10 feet high by 14 feet wide.
Wow.
So it was pretty massive. Then this work traveled to the East Coast. It was shown at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. And now that piece is unassembled back in my studio.
Oh, wow.
This is another piece, again, talking about nature and about the human world and how these two worlds collide. This was shown at Los Angeles International Airport, and it's entitled Aquarium. So this piece presents an aquarium, but instead of seeing fish, you see people swimming in water. So you can see the swimmers here.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So each window is like the window of an aquarium. And so you're seeing the human world, human behaviors through these windows. This piece is also photo-based. These are photographs that are backlit. As I moved along, this is a work that the beginning of my series that is called Displacement Series. Again, I'm using elements from the natural world and from the human world. We saw the nest before, and this is a branch, so the themes are deeply connected. In this case, this is a photograph. So the actual artwork is a photograph, not an installation as the previous works. And in this photograph, we see a very dry branch with a red crib. So I'm talking about the mingling of human world and the natural world, but also I'm talking about displacement. And this crib can symbolize the countries or the places that immigrants had to leave. So it's like you had to leave your home, your bases, but also it also talks about where you arrive. When you arrive into a new land, you create a new home, a new basis. So you create a new sense of belonging. But as you can see, the branch is very dry. So it talks about a world that is not beautiful and pretty, and it's not paradise, but it shows a very dry and tough environment.
So you created the structure and then photographed it.
Exactly. Actually, the branch is a found object. I found it on the street, and it's a beautiful sculptural piece that I still have in my studio. I've had it for almost 15 years. I found it one day on the street. It's part of a palm tree that fell off. Yes. But honestly, I've seen many pieces of dry leaves of palm trees on the street, but I never ever again found a piece this beautiful, because, and also the fact that everything is held together. Yes. And I created many pieces and many photographs using this dry branch as the background for my photograph. So yeah, I created a sort of diorama. I photographed it, and the actual artwork is this photograph that you see here.
Wonderful.
And I'm showing you this because all of this leads to the artwork that I'm presenting now at TAM.
Okay.
This is another piece from the same series where we see houses and a red fence, and the houses have no windows and no doors. So it talks about the sense of invisibility that immigrants face when we are settling in a new land. And also the red fence, it talks about all the hardships and the barriers that we have to face again when settling into a new land.
Is that
this is another piece.
same branch? Was that the same branch?
Yeah, this one before in the background was the same branch as we saw before.
Yeah.
So it creates a sort of what I call like a mixed nature, where we have elements from nature, but also elements from the human world, and I'm creating like a new kind of nature. As I developed this series, I was awarded a grant from the city of Santa Monica, and I was able in 2015, and I was able to develop this series further. And this is the next step on this new series. And this piece is called Procession. And what I wanted to show is in a very playful manner, again, with miniature toy objects. As I showed before, I had the miniature crib, which is actually a toy crib. In this one, we can see these tiny mushrooms that can be very playful in a way. But here they are representing people, and people that are crossing deserts and that are trying to get into a new land. And you know, you can see the different strips, and you can feel like people that are walking in different kinds of groups through the land or through the desert and trying to reach a new land. So I always, even though I talk about serious and important issues, I try to present them through a lens of beauty and contemplation. I always think that people and the public will kind of have a much more a closer connection if there's an image that seems approachable and that you feel drawn towards, and not something that you know, that you kind of feel aversion to. So this is another piece from this series. Again, it's a beautiful red couch or sofa that it's in the middle of the desert. It talks about this sense of isolation and abandonment. Another piece from the same series, this is called Bridge, and here we can see a bridge in the middle of these little spikes that fell off from a tree, and that they create an ocean. So I'm talking about the oceans or the waters that immigrants have to cross in order to reach a new land. But as you can see, the beginning and the end of the bridge, you're still in the same place. So yeah, this piece is not the most optimistic of all, but I like the fact that everything is the same color, it's the same shades, but the textures are so different. So the textures and the shapes, you can see the different elements, and there's so much that you can see there, even though everything looks so similar in terms of color.
And it's probably it's a probably very realistic representation of the process you're trying to show.
Yeah, thank you. This is another piece. In this piece, it's funny because here we have a nest again, the nest that I showed in the first piece that I created for the first Sur Biennial, but these are actual image, like actual little toys. There's a nest, there's a bird's nest, there are houses, there's a castle, which I think a castle is the most idealized version of a home, and we have a red house, a lighthouse, and then a tent. And with this tent, I wanted to talk about refugees and all the refugees that are living in tents, and also homeless people all around our city and our country and the world. So again, I'm talking about belonging, the search for this sense of belonging, and what a home really means and what it represents, and the search of, I think, everybody, which is to find your home. Another piece from the same series, again, houses with no doors and no windows, talking about that sense of invisibility and isolation. And this is the piece I wanted. I presented all this just to get to this piece. It's a piece from the same series, and in this one, I created a mountains made out of maps. And these tiny ladders, I'm going to zoom in, these tiny ladders symbolize the people who are trying to reach a new land. I created this series in 2015, and in that time, we were all reading in the news about Syria and the people who were trying to escape Syria, and they were trying to cross the Mediterranean and reach Europe. So as you can see, the mountains are the map of Europe, and some of the ladders are on the Mediterranean, on the water, and trying to reach the land. So again, I created this sort of diorama, which I photographed, and the artwork is this photograph per se.
Okay.
This is another piece from the same series. Again, it's like a close-up of another angle. Again, a ladder trying to reach land, reach a country. And okay, and going back, and when I created this series, as you see, I always want to take my photographs to a 3D. So my hope and my wish was to take that photograph and create it in 3D in real life. And in 2018, I had the opportunity to do this when I created the real maps, 3D, I did a residency at Building Bridges Art Exchange in Santa Monica with the curator Marisa Caicholo, and in one of the rooms of the gallery, I created these monumental maps, and it's maps from all over the world. I'm going to show you this photograph because I think here you can see the scale of the maps. And what I like about this photograph, the first iteration of this installation was called Off the Map. And the idea was that spectators would stand in this room, look at the maps of the world that are sort of mountains. You can see all of the maps of the world, all the countries, but you don't belong to anything. You're off the map and you're looking up and you cannot reach any of them. So the idea is to be in the shoes of those immigrants who feel off the map, that they have nowhere to belong to. And the other important thing about this piece is that I created my own collage of maps. So all the maps of the world are mixed up in random order. So for example, here we can see Colombia, and next to this is Sudan. So this is Africa. Yeah. Next to here we have Antarctica. So we will see more of these countries later, or continents. But the idea was that I mixed up the maps of the world randomly to talk about many things. On the one hand, I did it to talk about the sense that we feel lost, that we lost the direction. It's like the maps that we used to have are no longer working for us, and we are trying to make sense of a new reality. It also presents, this is a close-up of one of the corners of this piece, where we have Guinea, we have Senegal next to Lake Superior, Lake Superior, and Michigan, and
Yeah.
and so the idea is to create this map that has been deflated. It's a world that has been deflated, that has lost its core. And we will talk about more about the different meanings as we move along. This is another iteration, and I like to present this because this was shown at Cerritos College. Its curator and director is James McDevitt, which is another of the founders and curators of Sur Biennial. So everything connects. This was shown in 2019 for Cerritos, the art gallery project that is called Window Dressing. So in this piece in particular, I talked about connectivity, global connectivity for good and for bad, and how Amazon and online e-commerce has changed the way that we communicate around the world, and how it has affected urbanization and civilization in general. Here you can see the Amazon boxes that are going under the map, and they are like becoming the spine of the world, which actually it's kind of literal and metaphoric, because in order for me to create the volume of this paper, I install boxes underneath. So as these boxes start going under the map, they are really holding the world, the maps of the world physically, but I think also e-commerce nowadays is the backbone of the world in a literal level. And I'm talking about how urbanization, because there are so many of our everywhere. I think our urban environment has changed because of this. There are so many areas that had to redevelop. There are so many storefronts that are closed because people have changed the way they purchase things, and people don't walk anymore as before because they don't need to get out of the house. So there are so many things that have changed because of this new global reality. And these red lines that are connecting points of the world randomly, again, to talk about connectivity, that we are all connected for good and for bad. This is another close-up.
And that's paper. The map is paper.
Paper. So the map is made out of paper, and it's an incredible paper because it has a certain weight, so I can mold it and shape it, and it pretty much holds its weight on its own. And once the installation is over, I just roll it up and it goes back to my studio. So all these different installations that you're going to see is the same material that has been reused over and over again. And I like to show this piece. Again, it's another iteration of the map. So the beauty of the map is that because it's paper, it adapts to different environments and to different shapes. And this piece was shown at the Nomad exhibition in Torrance.
Yes.
But again, in 2021. So it was the first iteration of Nomad. It was shown on the fifth floor. You can see through the windows the Torrance landscape. In this case, I'm going to show you another photograph. This is me so that you can see the scale of the piece.
Oh, wow.
This is how the because of the area where I installed, instead of using the wall, I used the floor mostly. And here, this is what I want to show you, because as you can see, the maps of the world are coming out from a shipping container. And you can see that the shipping container has these labels that show fragile. And actually, it's a real and an actual shipping crate that I've used many times. It has come back and forth from my studio to different projects, and I've had it back in my studio. So again, it's a real object, it's a found object that I'm incorporating into the piece. And the map, the whole world is coming from that shipping crate. So I like the symbolism of that, of connectivity of the world, of moving around the world, of the idea of traveling, of crossing borders. I think it also talks about, I don't know, immigration, how you come out on your ship from one place to another in a way. And there's another close-up here where you can see the labels, fragile. And again, I think these labels of fragile, please handle with care. They're very symbolic, talking about humans in general, that we are fragile and how we need to take care of ourselves. And again, it talks about the world, and the world that is fragile, and that it has to be handled with care. So it talks about environmental issues, again, about how we have to care for our environment. Sorry, are you still there?
I am. I'm just.
Okay.
No, I'm totally here. I just stopped my video.
Oh, okay. So, so as I said, so these fragiles talk about humans, but again, talking about the fragility of our environment. These mountains that I create with the maps can also resemble an iceberg, and the icebergs that are melting around the world. Yes. So this piece has so many layers of meaning and interpretation. And this is the piece. This is the piece that I'm presenting right now at the Torrance Art Museum. So this is the installation for which we are talking about today. I'm really proud of this piece. I used 2 walls of the museum, so it creates a really immersive experience. The highest peak is more than 12 feet high. It presents again all the different countries of the world, or all mixed up in random order. Generally, when I'm installing, I have a lot of this material, and I always try to select which areas or which countries I want to highlight many times according to global events and what is going on at the world at that moment.
Okay.
In this piece, one of the central, we don't see it here. Oh yeah, here. One of the central areas of the world that I'm highlighting is Antarctica, and the melting of the ice sheets. And then it's interesting because we all know that there are certain global events that are always at the forefront of our conversation. But then if you start to look at the world and the different countries, it's like, oh, and this country is going through this crisis. Oh, and this country is also going through this crisis. So every time we look at the world and the different map configurations that I create, I would say that 80% of the countries that are presented are going through different crises or different upheavals. So it really makes you reflect on the state of our globe.
Is there an armature or some sort of a structure beneath that?
Believe it or not, the armature is very minimal, and it's the cardboard boxes that I showed you in my previous installation. So I installed cardboard boxes in some areas to hold the volume. Sometimes I set up a little bit of cardboard, and that's about it. It's paper and cardboard. Yeah, and I just create the volume as I install the paper into the wall, and the volume stays there because the paper is thick.
So these are really site-specific installations then, because it would be very difficult to replicate that anywhere else. So, and I love the fact that they placed the bench there, because it's definitely something in front of which you'd need to sit for a while to absorb, to absorb the message of what you're trying to convey. So,
Yes. And I'm going to show you another piece, which is the detail. And I like the fact that this person was a member of the public. I didn't hire an actor. It's not a family member that I asked them to stand there and pretend that
right.
they're really contemplating at the map. This is a real person looking at the map. And this, I think, shows really the immersive nature of this piece, that you can really go in and spend time and looking at the countries, looking at the cities, rediscovering the world in a sense. And this is very interesting for 2 or 3 reasons. On the one hand, people who have immigrated into this country love to find their country of origin, and even the city where they come from. These maps are very detailed, so they show cities as well. But then people who were born in this country then many times love to find the cities or the countries where their ancestors came from, which is also incredible to find that connection with your past
Right.
and your memory. That is one thing. So that's like a very strong connection of the public with the piece. And the other thing is rediscovering the world in a way, because maps nowadays are in a sense obsolete. We actually don't use maps anymore. We all use, our smartphones, and
Unless you're my husband, who still uses map drive, and I have to wear very strong glasses to read it. But yes.
I love it. You know what? The first time that I visited in LA as a tourist in 2001, I did use a map. It was the Thomas Guide, and
Right.
I was flipping through the pages just to figure out how to go from place A to place B.
Yes.
And now that Thomas Guide, it's somewhere in my attic, but I don't use it anymore.
I'm sure it will turn itself into one of your works soon.
Yes. Yes. Well, but unless you're your husband, most people,
Right.
I don't know, maybe like 60% of the population of the world. I mean, that would be a good research. How many people are still using actual paper maps?
Sure. And how much of the new generation actually is able to read a map, understand how to get from place A to place B to place C, just using the map with the scale and all of that sort of thing. So
exactly.
yeah, it's like a rotary phone, I guess.
Yes. So it's wonderful for people to rediscover the power and the beauty of real maps, old-fashioned maps. And this person was there. I mean, I loved it. I took thousands of photographs. He was there for more than 10 minutes, contemplating and absorbing the maps of the world. So it was a really beautiful moment. And what I want, this is another shot of the piece at the Torrance Art Museum. And as you can see here, I always, although these works are site specific, I always want to create a piece that is monumental. Even though these photographs, you can see the scale of the work, I would recommend everyone, hopefully, to try to go and see it in person, because I don't think photographs can really transfer the monumentality of the piece. It's very hard to express this through a photograph. The piece is really gigantic and monumental, and what I always try to, and I aspire to do that when I'm creating one of these works and these installations. I want to produce in people this wow moment, this moment when you become a child again, and it's like when you were a child and you saw maybe a natural wonder for the very first time, that you had this wow moment. I want my work to give that space for people's minds to be able to to think of something different, to contemplate, to dream, to wonder. I think that's the beauty of art in general, to give you that space of wonder, of contemplation, of introspection, of thinking, of something else, taking you out from reality and taking you into a different world or dimension. So that's my aim also with this work, to take you into a different world, no pun intended. And I always, as I said, try to create these moments through pieces that don't show, although I'm talking about serious subjects as immigration, about in this particular piece, with in the installation at TAM, which the show is talks about Mala Muerte and talks about colonialism and the religious syncretism that has originated because of these two, because of all these cultures merging, the Spanish and the the Spanish and the culture as they colonized Latin America, and the indigenous cultures. We're talking about that, but we're also talking about environmental issues and also immigration, and how immigration many times is created, it's forced by environmental disasters, and people are forced to leave. So I'm talking about all these issues, but I'm not showing them through a doom and gloom lens, but I'm showing them through the lens of beauty and contemplation and hope.
Right, which really is representative of our world if we choose to look at it that way. I think the magnitude of the piece, the size of it, just the sheer volume of it, it gives you that feeling of when you stand and you're looking out into the ocean. You're just, it kind of puts your own place in the world, quite literally in your work. You're just a very small piece of it. And it's almost the converse of what we normally do when we look at a map, which tends to make things much smaller so that we can see them all at once. If you're looking at a map of your city or your state or the country as you travel through it, and then so this is the converse of that. You're little, and the map is big, which is in itself awesome. Like
Yeah.
the real word awe. You look at it and you do feel that feeling of wonder and awe when you're standing, I'm sure, in front of this piece.
Yeah, I think what you said is perfect. Yeah, I love that, this observation. Yeah. Yeah. So let's see what goes next. Okay. And as you were talking about the work being site specific, as I've shown you, every time this map has been shown, it has adapted to different architectures and different spaces. And even for Nomad in 2021, it was more like a floor piece instead of a wall piece. And I'm including this photograph because this was shown at the Hilliard Art Museum. I had a solo show at the beginning of this year, entitled On the Verge, and this piece in particular was 20 feet high. Again, I don't think, even though we see a person here for scale, I don't know if you can really see the monumentality of the piece, but this piece in particular, I had to install it with a crane. All the previous pieces, I was able to install them with a ladder, with a 12-foot ladder, climbing on a 12-foot ladder. But this was 20 feet high, so there was no way I could go up a ladder. So I had to install it from a crane. It was a totally different process. It was wonderful. It was a big challenge, which fortunately I was able to do it. And yeah, so it talks about how the work adapts to different places, and also it's the personal challenges that I create every time I show it in a different environment.
So can you speak very quickly? I noticed the title, The Maps That Failed Us. That's the title. Is that the title everywhere you take it?
That's a really good question and a really good observation. So the first iteration of the piece, the one that as I first presented, it was called Off the Map. This
Right.
one was called Off the Map.
Okay.
And because I really wanted people to feel as if they were off the map, and the focus was on immigration. Then this piece in particular, as it was presented at Cerritos, it was called Coffin, because this window became a sort of coffin where the world had died, and the world as we knew it had died because of the new economy and e-commerce. And this was already this was still off the map.
Okay.
And then the new iterations of the map are retitled, and they're called The Maps That Failed Us. And the idea is thinking about everything that has failed humanity, that has led us to be where we are. And it talks about leaders, global leaders who have failed us in terms of trying to solve the climate crisis, but again, how to solve humanitarian crisis.
Humans who have failed humanity.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's about that. So the maps that failed us, it's a way of talking about also the global order and the world as we saw it that has failed, and it has failed everyone. So yeah, in a way, we have all failed one another in a sense. I mean, I don't want to put the blame on some people, and I think we're all part of this, and I think we all at the same time need to try to figure out a way to come out of this together.
Absolutely. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, that idea of presenting such a complicated issue in such a beautiful way that we can all relate to. I mean, we all have a place on this earth. And so, seeing that map representing like this person is so invested in a particular part of it, I think is hopeful in a way to say that, okay, here it is right in front of you. You, even as one small person, can have a positive change and positive effect.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So yeah, so this is a new title. I think it fits more what's going on around the world right now. I think it relates more to what we're all going through right now.
And it will change and morph, obviously, when the situation changes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And for example, here, as you can see, this is Argentina. This is the country where I'm from. So I always, when I can, try to show also my place of origin, to talk about my personal history. I mean, I talk about global issues, but also I try to insert my own personal issues and my personal story in it.
And in a way, that's so random, because I'm assuming that when you knit together all of the countries, you said you did it randomly. And so the idea that when you create the installation, that you can have your country of origin right there, front and center, almost at the summit, is extraordinary.
Yeah. Sometimes, that my countries of origin is more visible than others.
Yeah.
Again, it depends. Every installation is different. Sometimes you really have to look through all the folds to find it. And in this place, in this iteration, I was really able to put it in a very visible location. For example, here is Cuba and Miami. Before moving, I've lived in Los Angeles for 18 years. Before living in Los Angeles, I lived in Miami for 8 years. So here's Florida, Miami, and here's Cuba. And I think when I lived in Florida and Miami, this is when I was first became aware of the plights of immigrants, as we saw every day in the news there, the people who were escaping from Cuba, and they were trying to cross the ocean and reach Florida on any kind of floating device. And I call it any kind of floating device because people, in many times, as you saw it in the news, were not even trying to cross the waters with a boat. It was any kind of object that could float, and it was heartbreaking. And you could see the desperation of people who were getting on these floating devices by themselves or with their families, and they were risking their lives. And as I heard one person say, you really have to be desperate to risk your life and to be willing to be eaten by sharks, just to cross the water and reach the United States. And that made a really big impact. And that's when I started thinking about immigration, and how lucky some of us are to be in a safe land, and how other people are risking their own lives just to reach here. So I don't know, that this is an important thing that has always stuck to me, and I've created so many series based on the idea of water, of floating, of drifting, and yeah, and trying to be rescued or saved.
We're doing well. We have about 20 minutes just to give you some idea of how you want to navigate through
Okay.
the remainder of your work. We can cover as much of it as if we have time for.
Okay. So I'm going to, okay, I will go on. Let me look at, okay. So so apart from these works, these map installations, I've explored other kinds of maps. These are flight maps. So these are maps that pilots use when they are flying. And what I discovered is that flight maps have areas that have the word restricted, as you can see here. And these show the areas that pilots are not supposed to fly over.
Right.
And again, I started using these maps and using the word restricted not as a metaphor, again, for immigration and for the immigration policies that different leaders and different countries set up. And I placed a house, again, a toy piece next to it. Again, the house talking about home, about belonging, and next to the word restricted, talking about sometimes that you're not even allowed to have the basic needs of having your home and crossing borders. This is another piece, and this I think relates also to what I was telling you about my life in Florida, and about seeing all these people who were fleeing Cuba, these life preservers, meaning talking about people crossing waters, trying to reach a safe land. And again, the house showing that this strong sense of belonging. And again, we have the word restricted. This is another piece from the same series. This is again a toy mattress with the word restricted. And this one in particular, I did it in 2020. So this mattress can represent different things. We can think about immigrants and refugees that are just given a mattress just to lay on the floor. But it can also talk about homelessness, and the mattress that we see all around the city, and the people who have nowhere to live. But at the same time, I was thinking about, in 2020, about COVID and all the sick people. And when you're sick, you lay on bed on a mattress. So I was thinking about that as well, and about medical access and the word restricted, thinking about who has access to all to medical care and who doesn't. So I was thinking of different issues when just using one mattress. And this is a different series, but it's kind of related, because as I told you before, the mountains created with maps that I showed at all these venues look like icebergs. And this is my other series, which is actual iceberg. So it's how the two works connect in a sense. I think all my works show elevations, whether it's elevations of mountains or elevations made out of rocks, made out of paper, or made out of ice in this case. And these are two-dimensional works that are photo collages. So these are photo collages that I create using photographs from actual mountains that I've visited, from the internet, from encyclopedias, from magazines. Also, my friends, people I know, send me their own photographs when they've been to places with icebergs or with glaciers. So I create these landscapes where I put together my personal memory with a collective history. And again, as you saw in my photographs before, I combine elements from the natural world with the human world. In this case, you see this kind of bridge that comes from the human world. So I'm talking again about this relationship between humans and the natural world. And I'm also talking about human invasion into our environment and how we invade even the most remote places on Earth. These works are mixed media. I print them on a sort of cotton watercolor paper, and then I work over the surface with pastels and pencils. So I'm zooming in so that you can see the pencil work and
right.
work.
Yeah. There's like that subliminal, with the elevation piece, there's that subliminal message to, to elevate your thought about what you're looking at.
Right. Yeah. And also I think for me personally, mountains or elevations in general are a metaphor for the difficulties that you have to overcome.
Yes.
But you can overcome. This is, for example, another huge iceberg with a tiny buoy floating, and I think in all the works, as you mentioned before, about the monumentality of the artwork and us human as really tiny,
Yes.
in relationship to that piece. And there's always display in my works between something that is really monumental and something very tiny. It's about the macrocosmos and the microcosmos. And here's that relationship between this tiny element and this big environment. This is another piece again. Well, here there's fire. Talking more about environmental issues. You can see all the pencil work into this piece. These are very psychological landscapes, very surreal, very theatrical.
Yes, they're very surreal in a naturalistic way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another one here.
The
Well,
juxtaposition of sky, sea, all the pieces were placed by you intentionally to create the composition.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, here you can see
right, like
what do you call it? A scaffold, right?
Scaffolding.
Yeah, scaffolding in the middle of an ice sheet with a very strong shadow, it is very theatrical. Another very this is a very surreal and end of the apocalyptic piece. I was thinking about the apocalypse when I created this. It's like an end of the world where like a big billboard has no message. It's like humanity is gone in a sense. And this is an exhibition with that I presented at Los Angeles International Airport. It was called A Letter to the Future, and
wow.
It says it's based on the title of the exhibition is based on a poem that an Icelandic writer, their most famous writer, wrote and dedicated to the first iceberg that melted due to climate change. And scientists erected in Iceland a monument to commemorate the iceberg that disappeared. And the poem that this writer wrote is printed on a plaque on top of the monument. And the poem says, in English,
Yes.
in the next 200 years, all our glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and what needs to be done. Only you know if we did it.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful, it's poetic.
Frightening at the same
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yep.
So again, the exhibition wants to talk about create this awareness, again, through a lens of hope, not through a doom and gloom lens, in order to connect more directly with the public, so that the public are not turned off by these hard topics. I mean, we can all get really scared when you think about these issues, but I think sometimes when you get scared, you freeze, and we don't want to freeze. We want to do something about it.
And this is hand colored. Is this watercolor?
So this is the same technique as the piece before. So this is a photograph that I printed on a cotton paper, and then I worked over the surface with pastels and pencils.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a mixed media piece. Here you can see in the close-up a little bit of the details of the soft pastel and pencil work. And what I like about this installation in particular is that we have the very big piece that it's called Abait. It's like you're standing on top of the iceberg, which again relates to the map piece where you have the mountain. But here we have, so it's beautiful, but you have an abyss. So it's this idea of that imminent danger. And then this small piece, actually it's a photograph that a friend of mine who is a curator in Florida, her name is Francine Brager, sent to me. She took this photograph in Antarctica, and this is an iceberg that had broken off. So these are the pieces that are of iceberg that are floating in the water. So, and again, this connects to the idea of showing something monumental, and then the pieces, the macrocosm, and then the microcosmos of actually what the iceberg is made of, which is made of these tiny pieces of ice. And then I'm showing something that is complete, and then something that is already broken. These are other pieces from the same exhibition. This is buoy, again, a buoy, something from the human world that is floating in a very remote landscape. These are different views of the exhibition. I like this piece in particular because here you can see all the pencil work. When I created this exhibition was in 2019, and I was thinking of something extremely surreal as a theater seats in the middle of an iceberg. It was a very post-apocalyptic image in a sense, these empty seats. And then 2020 came, and we had these empty seats and empty theaters everywhere, and this was a reality. So it was interesting how life imitated art in a way. And
go ahead. Go ahead. I was just going to say, it's interesting when I look at this piece, I think of myself sitting in that seat and thinking what a wondrous opportunity that would be to sit and just, it's forcing you to say, sit down and look at, the beauty that's in front of you, and also contemplate the fact that it's not going to be here for much longer if we don't make some changes.
I love that. I love it. Thank you. So this is one of the pieces from this series. Again, something that I thought was sort of post-apocalyptic, and then it became a reality. These are other works from the show. These are more graphic in a sense. They have this pop art quality.
Yes.
They have these very bright colors, very strong shapes. These are more like close-ups.
Oh, yes.
This is another shot from the Hilliard Art Museum where the 4 pieces are shown together.
Very John Baldessari-esque.
Yeah, and then this is another related to the one with the red theater seats before. This has a red Ferris wheel, and this is the counterpart of the red seats. Again, I was thinking of these places of enjoyment of where people what do you call it, places of
Entertainment or
entertainment, places of entertainment that were totally abandoned. It's like a post-apocalyptic scene that then became our reality. We got used to them. This is another piece again from talks about isolation, and I think it relates also to the isolation we all felt. So now this isolation in a way didn't only was not only felt by immigrants in a sense, but we all felt it as we lived through 2020, this sense of global isolation. This is another piece from the same series, from the same exhibition. And this is, I like these pieces because, again, they show the top of icebergs, which are mountains like the piece at TAM. This was shown during 2020. It was all these drive-through exhibitions that took place around the city when institutions were closed. So we could only create artwork for outdoors that the public could view safely within the social distancing guidelines, and people could enjoy them either driving or walking or riding their bikes. And this was part of an exhibition entitled "We Are Here, Here We Are." It was organized by Durden and Ray.
I was going to say, this sounds very Max-like.
Yes, exactly. Max Presnell is the founder of Durden and Ray. And I was really honored to be part of this exhibition. And it was interesting because, as you see, the colors are very beautiful, very pastel-like. And during those dark times, I needed a sort of escapism. So I created scenes that were very beautiful and dreamy. I needed that, and I thought my public needed that as well. We had enough darkness around us, so I wanted art to take me and take others to another place. And these were placed. I installed these at 18th Street Art Center in Santa Monica, which is where my studio is located, and these are the main offices. And these I created them. I printed these works on outdoor material so they could withstand the elements. And these are the individual pieces, the details of the 2 works. This is another piece that I did during the pandemic, again for the outdoors, again for the public to enjoy safely. And what I've been trying to do, what I like about this work, as in the previous one, is that the fact that I'm playing these very romantic and beautiful and dreamy landscapes in these very industrial areas where there's not a lot of green and beauty around. There's a lot of cement and concrete. And I like that juxtaposition of something very beautiful and very poetic in a sense against this very raw and dry landscape. And I like the fact that to create that element of surprise in the public, and people are just walking around or driving around, and then all of a sudden you find this that is totally out of place, that it's totally different from what you're expecting to see. And I like that element of surprise also, where the public can be taken by surprise and be presented with something beautiful. And And this is what I've been concentrating lately on, public art projects, as a big part of the practice of my art practice, creating this, taking my work out of like the 2 dimensions, out of the typical walls of the studio, and taking it outdoors and sharing it with a big part of the population. This was one of the works that I showed you before that was then transferred onto a billboard in Hollywood. And then another piece that was inspired by the pandemic. I was on a road trip through the American West. I was standing on a creek. I was listening and seeing as water was going over a creek and over some rocks. And I was just amazed by the beauty of the sound of water. Although we had all seen and heard water before, but at that moment, I was sort of in a meditative state, and I had like an epiphany of the beauty that surrounds us, and I said, I want to show this beauty to the rest of the world. Most of my work, I had always worked with still images, but since what I was seeing and hearing was movement, I needed to create movement, so I needed to create a video. And since I had already been focusing on public work, I said I want to project it on a building where lots of people can see it. But the water in that creek was running horizontally, but I was thinking if I show it on a building, the building is going to have a certain width, so I'm not going to be able to cover a lot of surface with my projection. So I decided to make the water run vertically so that I could cover a larger surface of a building. And that's how this video came about. And it's called agua, which is the word water in Spanish. And it just shows water. It's like a waterfall. And again, it talks about it adapts architecturally to different spaces, just like the map. I've shown it in different venues, and the water and the height of the water and the width of the water adapts to the different spaces. And I started, what I was thinking is, okay, I want to create the idea of water invading the city again, like this relationship between the natural world and the urban world, and how the two worlds collide. And as I was thinking about that, I started thinking of, okay, the word flood, and I thought, okay, the universal flood. And I started researching the concept and the origin of the universal flood. And what I found was that the concept of flood is not only present in the Bible, but it's present in many different cultures and religions. But it always, no matter where, it always relates to the idea of being reborn and being the idea of renewal and rebirth. And as we were coming out of the pandemic, I thought this was a perfect piece, because we all needed this idea that we were being reborn again, that we were starting again, that we were being cleansed. And this was shown in 2021 in downtown LA, and it was part of Luminex, which was a project created by Now Art in collaboration with Building Bridges Art Exchange.
Nice. Beautiful.
And this is the piece that will be presented in Abu Dhabi in the next coming weeks.
Okay, fantastic. Wow. Absolutely.
So I think we have reached our time, right?
We're pretty close. How much do you have?
I can show you one more project if you want.
Sure. Hope is following you, so she just texted and said, "Take your time." So, sure, show us the next.
Okay.
Sure.
So also okay, I'm going to show you the video and then I'll tell you about it.
Okay, great.
Doesn't need to have
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's on a time lapse.
Wow.
So this video again, during the pandemic, I went on a road trip through the American West, and I took thousands of photographs. And when I came back to LA, I knew I had material for 3 solo exhibitions. And then this opportunity presented itself to be part of this project entitled Projecting Possibilities, created by Culver City Foundation. And again, it was during COVID, so the idea was to create a project to be shown outdoors for public, for the public safely viewing these works. And this was a projection and of 24 images that I created, and that they were shown in a sequence, one after the other. And they show the American West, but there's I present it through my own lens, and I create this narrative where there's color alteration to talk about different moods, and this kind of narrative takes you in a sort of science fiction journey, that it takes you out of this world. And the idea is also to escape. And as I was telling you before, I think I needed to escape, and I also wanted to offer my viewers, my public, the possibility of escape. The fact that we couldn't escape from our reality, but we could escape through art, was something that I really was looking forward to at the time. So in these pieces, again, I added elements from the human world. I remember I added this fire, as if someone was lighting a fire in the middle of this snowy forest. This very green sky. This was a work that was shown at TAM again in 2021 during a project called Ultra.
Oh, this was
Torrance
Ultra.
Art
Okay.
Museum.
Right. So this was inside or outside?
This was inside the museum.
Okay.
And these are other images from the same series from Road Trip. Again, I always try to add these elements that add as a real feeling to the whole image. For example, this red fire coming out from the horizon in the middle of a desert road. And
real realism.
very much. And this is the very last series. Do we have still time, or?
I do. Please do. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And this is one of the latest series I created during another road trip through the American West. I became fascinated with the landscape, and yeah, it's just like an overwhelming beauty of the landscapes of the American West. And these are photographs. So this series that I'm presenting here are photographs, and I'm presenting them just as they are. There's no color alteration, or there's no addition or digital retouching of any kind. And these are photographs of Lake Powell. Again, I'm talking about environmental issues and about elements related to water. Lake Powell is the second largest reservoir, the second largest water reservoir in the United States. 20% of the water from California comes from this lake. And last year, when I took these photographs, it was 75% empty. Yes. So it was only 25% full. And if you see these photographs from a distance, they are really beautiful. You look at these beautiful landscapes. But then if you look closely, you will see all these details that show the human intrusion into these landscapes. Here in the forefront, you see the garbage containers and the garbage area. Here you can see the water hydrant. You call it a water hydrant?
Right, fire hydrant, right.
The fire hydrant.
Yes.
And then you see these rocks that are placed very symmetrically to outline the parking lot. So I'm showing all these elements from the human world that have been inserted in this beautiful landscape. This is the dam that has created Lake Powell. Here we have a parking lot. And structure, a building structure.
It's just such a
And this is just like Powell. And again, these images are really beautiful. They talk about the macrocosm of and the beauty of the macrocosm, and then these minute details from our human environment, the human world, and how the two connect.
yeah.
So I think, yeah, this is my whole presentation.
Beautiful.
And again, even though this series looks different in a way, but again, I'm showing mountains. So there's always this constant element of these elevations that are present in my work through different constructions, through different materials, or the elevations themselves, whether they are rocks here or ice in my icebergs.
Yeah, it's very gives me a very prehistoric feeling, right? That those structures that we see in Utah and out west, it's a very surreal landscape when you can intentionally omit the human trash can or parking lot or whatever it might be, and capture it in its very pure state. Beautiful. Absolutely. Yeah. I really appreciate you spending the time today to explain or to discuss the work, particularly the work at the TAM, which we're hoping people will come out to see before it closes on the 2nd of December. But yeah, we also do these talks so that we can highlight the work of the artists who show at the TAM, because where you've been involved in several shows and involved in TAMA at a time, we're just super appreciative of the fact that you were able to join us today. So I thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity and the time to share my work with all your audience. And thank you for your amazing comments and interpretations and deep analysis of my work. I really enjoyed what you had to share.
Great. All right. Well, thanks again. And we will be in touch.
Thank you so much.
All right.